Well, I'm working on an HMV number 59 motor today. This is a dark blue 102, I'm sorry, dark blue HMV 101 motor. Somebody has specially requested this machine, so I have moved it to the front of the line, and we're going through the motor. Now, first thing I found was the mainspring was not in great shape. Ooh, that was a mess. Heavily crusted with whale oil type lubricant. Apparently original from the 1930s. There was extensive rust on the spring, and it just didn't have much spring left. It was kind of limp. A sure indication that it's not going to perform very well. Fortunately, I did have a brand new mainspring in stock. These are the rings that they come wrapped in. That is sourced actually from Victor. That's for one of the Victor tabletop, the small tabletop, the Victrola, the fourth. Probably 1918 to about 1922, 23. It's the type with the hook in the middle, as you can see there, and the eyelet, the pear-shaped eye on the end, which was used by Victor on that machine for a few years. Not really that long, but a few years. Probably fits other things as well, but that one for sure. And of course, we needed a new friction leather. That was disintegrating. Didn't find any missing parts for a change. It was extremely, extremely crusted with nasty. Just like glue. Like glue. And let's see, there is the tag from the machine. And here we have the greasy ball bearing you see there. It'll be on the left side of your screen. That is the ball bearing that goes under the main shaft on the motor. The one next to it is out of one of the governor shaft bearings. And as you can see, they are identical. I figured they were because it did fit very well. That time I had a motor that was missing one. I sourced it from a bearing cap. And yes, they are the same. So that's good to know because these do get lost. This works for me because I have quite a few spare motors and all kinds of parts I've hoarded over the years, including bearing caps. You know, all I got to do is just soak the bearing and work the little ball bearing out of it. They're always glued in with old grease and whatever. So I have them when needed. Now this is for the HMV motors. The Victrola motors tend to use a much larger ball bearing there under that shaft. They're a larger motor, so this would not work there, but it does work here where it is pretty critical. You have to have that. If you ever open up one of these motors and you look, let me back that off, in that little cup right there, and that bearing is not there, not only is your motor going to have to work a lot harder to turn that shaft, but the turntable is not going to sit right. It's going to sit low, which means if there is any kind of a break, it's going to be scraping. It's not going to work properly. Altogether, not a good situation. It goes right on the end of that shaft. And this shaft, that's why I put it on there, has movement. It goes up and down. So you don't want it like that. It has to have a ball bearing to keep it a little bit off the bottom. Nothing, even your gear's not going to line up right. It's got to be there. So if it's missing, and that motor it was, my last HMV I did, it was missing, you do have to replace it. And these number 59s are the spam can motor, of course, with the little cover over it. They're really nice to work with. Everything's contained. The only dirt in them tends to come from the grease itself, turning hard with age and crusting everything up. You don't get a whole lot of dust in there and whatever, you know, dead bugs and whatever getting in there, because it is a sealed motor and it does do a pretty good job of keeping that stuff out. Other than that, it's really mechanically like any other HMV portable motor. All the parts, the spring's the same size, the barrel, the governor, there's no difference there. You know, here's your, whoops, that's the governor, really nice shape. All the springs are beautifully blued. This is the governor with the riveted, and it's always good to find them in good shape because these are hard to source. These have the riveted weights, and this is in very good condition. There's no problems there at all. The brass gears, very nice. This one still needs a little cleaning, but you can see the teeth are in good shape. They're not all buggered up. And, you know, you rarely find that, I find with these, but you never know. When there's been a lack of maintenance, as was obvious with this machine, you can find problems sometimes, worn gears. That's your non-return spring that keeps the winding shaft from spinning back on you. If that's broken, it needs to be replaced. This is the winding shaft gear. Goes on the end of your crank. Your winding handle goes right in the end of that. This is the governor shaft without the governor body on it. And on either end of this, you have those bearing caps I mentioned with the ball bearings in them. And that's what's soaking in this little bottle over here in solvent, that pill jar there. You know, I put them in a pill jar with a solvent, I can shake it around, and eventually the ball bearings will work their way out. Sometimes it could take days. You pick at it a little bit, you shake it, and they will eventually come at you. You have to get them loose. If you don't, and they're not spinning, it's like not having a bearing in there. You know, the shaft is just riding on one spot on the bearing. It'll eventually create a flat spot. Not good. It's part of servicing the motor is you do have to get those bearings out. However much of a pain in the ass it is, you still have to do it. That's a good shaft. The gears are looking very nice. This is a source of noise on these motors. You know, this rides on this. And even though that is a brass gear and it'll wear into the gears here, sometimes you can get a noisy motor, and it's usually traceable right here. This is spinning faster than any other gear in the motor. This is the governor. And it's spinning pretty quick, and if there's going to be noise, that's where it's going to come from. Not a whole lot you can do about it. I mean, if the teeth aren't too bad, you can kind of work them back into shape a little bit with a tiny file and a pick. But for the most part, you just end up living with whatever little bit of noise there might be. Not usually a lot with these motors. These are usually pretty good. One of the reasons they went to the fiber gear on some motors, not HMV, but Gerard and the Swiss motors, is so that it kind of limits the amount of noise you get here from that. Although, of course, when those gears let go, there really is no replacing them except to find another motor and take it out and use that gear and hope it's good. Yeah, that's about all you can do. With these, with the brass gear, at least you can shape it, or you can simply replace it. This gear is in a lot of motors, and there's no problem. You see there's a screw right there. It comes right out, slips right off that shaft, and you can replace it if you have to. But don't do that unless it's necessary, because you will change the motor's voice. When you do that, it's going to sound different. Every time you change a gear, you change how that motor sounds. It could get louder, it could get quieter, you never know. Best just to leave that alone and use the parts that belong in it. And before that gets all greasy, let's put that back up there. That was really it. Like I said, other than the weak mainspring and the crappy friction leather there, spinning on that right there, brand new friction leather. There were no real major issues here. This motor was in very good condition. I think it's just suffering from many, many, many years of sitting and just not being used, you know, just sitting around in a closet or an attic somewhere. And, well, I'll get to putting this back together, and eventually there'll be a video showing the whole machine. There's more cleaning to do on that. And I have to rebuild the reproducer for it, although we do have another one to test on it. Okay. The 101 dark blue motor, number 59 motor. Oh, I didn't show the HMV markings. There we go. Motor number 59. All right, back to work.